Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Boston Celtics, Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Oh yeah! Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Boston Celtics, Still Poddable, Still Poddable. And 19.
Beat Rob, Jim, Packard, J. King.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable.
The Caesar on the court to get another ring.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable.
Everybody in the chat now sing.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Boston Celtics, Still Poddable, Still Poddable. Oh yeah! Shut your ass up,
Daddy's always halfway there.
Welcome back to Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's interweb. I am Sam Jam Packard, professional sports fan, joined by Brian B. Robb from MassLive.com and producer Sean Gauthier. And this is the weekly free edition of Still Poddable. We are a Monday through Friday Celtics podcast, mostly on Patreon. And so if you want content from us every single day of the week, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. But if you're watching us today on the CLNS YouTube channel, that means this is the free show. And that means we are brought to you by Prize Picks and the GameTime app. Use promo code CLNS and you'll save some money using both of those fine products. This is the weekly free show, so we'll do a little bit of a recap of what was a very fun, eventful week for the Celtics. They had a win against the Cavaliers in the NBA Cup, giving them their first loss of the season. They played the Wizards in what was one of the worst games of basketball I've ever seen in my life. And I was fortunate enough to be in person for that one.
Glad you made the trip.
They really disappointed in person. I had 5 friends come to that game, and I met up with them after the game, and I was just like kept apologizing. He was like, "This is not what basketball is. Like this was the worst game in the world." Because they're like not really big basketball people, but they just like came out because I was going, and I just was like, no, it's like when you show like one of your friends a movie that you really like, and then they get up to go to the bathroom and don't ask to pause the movie. It's like they're clearly not as into it. It was a really tough situation.
Well, the good news is it was a Wizards game, so I probably spent like $15 for a ticket.
Yeah, it was fine. And so the Celtics did that, and then they had a very thrilling win against the Timberwolves today in Boston, a Sunday matinee. Finish out the week 3-0. They just keep on cruising. I think we can talk about the Wizards game a little bit later and just how bad that was.
Let's not. Do we have like?
We don't have to talk about the game per se because they kept like going. They didn't know any wiser. My friends are like, well, so what would be better about it? It's like, oh, normally they make shots. Like normally, the Celtics or the other team make a lot of shots. But let's focus on the good games. The Cavs and the Timberwolves, two, I would say, legitimate opponents where the Celtics played close basketball games and did everything they needed to do down the stretch to pull them out. Things got tight. I think they were a little bit more of a commanding victory against the Cavs. There's Anthony Edwards hits a shot, missed a 3 to kind of when the Wolves were down 2 to kind of take the lead. Then Jaylen takes what I would only describe as a extremely ill-advised 3 to put the Celtics up by 5 and kind of seal the victory for them. But I thought I was impressed by the Celtics, and maybe this is just like confirmation bias because they were able to walk away with the victories, B-Rob. But both against the Cavs and the Timberwolves, they got up big and the teams came back, and every single time it felt like the Celtics have had an answer in those 2 moments. And I don't know how much of that is good luck, but it does feel like they're very comfortable in that position and very comfortable kind of sealing these games out. It is not something we necessarily would have said about the Celtics, I would say, at this time last year.
Yeah, it sounds like reversed. Like straight up, these are the games they were losing last year. Like anything close at the end, more often than not, it would be not falling apart down the stretch, but just weren't able to execute. And it wasn't an issue because they were dominating 90% of the games to the point where it doesn't matter. But now in these situations, they find a way. The poise is there, and whether that's fallout from them doing it in the playoffs or just maturation, whatever it is, they're ready to get the stop they need in the big moment or just hit the shot they need to in the big moment. And it's pretty important right now because, they're cruising, but they're still, 2.5, 3 games out of first place because the Cavs are apparently not going to lose again unless they're facing the Celtics. So it is them winning these type of games is a pretty big step forward for this team this year.
And the game against the Timberwolves, the Timberwolves have not been as good as they were last year, but they're still playing in a tough East. They're still a very talented team. And obviously coming off the 2 overtime games that the Celtics played against the Timberwolves last year, this was a significant test. And I mean, what got into Jaylen Brown to start that game? That was absolutely absurd. Just to start the game with 5 threes, the 5th one being the most absurd of a step back over Rudy Gobert, and then the 6th attempt and 7th attempt being just some of the worst air balls I've seen in a while.
To his credit, he admitted those were bad heat checks. The 6 and 7, he's like, yeah, I should have probably used a little more discretion, which is hard to do when you make 5 in a row in 5 minutes like that. I think Jay was brought up after the game. I was like, was that a record for someone making 5 threes within the 5 minutes of the start of the game? It's probably very tough to find anyone who's done that in that short of a span. But yeah, I don't know. This game, Packard, it's great they won, but it also they were up by 19 in the third quarter and let it get away. And the Wolves aren't, on paper they look good, but they're a 500 team. They lost to the Raptors on Friday night in Toronto, and so it's the offense is good. The defense is good enough, but it's still despite the record, it's not the same level of dominance that we saw, I guess, last year. And that's obviously not cause for alarm, but it's just the reality of where maybe their motivation level is at, or just the fact that the NBA is just better across the board this year, at least in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I also a 19-point lead isn't what it's used to. In this NBA,
that's right,
you can lose a lead almost immediately, and on 4 possessions they can hit 4 straight threes. And so it's an odd thing because they've been up big in both those third quarters, up 19. I think they're up by more than that, 20 against the Cavs, or 24 in that early third quarter. Cavs came all the way back. They gave up the big lead. And so but in the modern NBA, and I feel like you lose your focus a bit. You're not as locked in, and it kind of bleeds in. You have 4 bad possessions, and immediately things can turn. But it's also kind of the flip, where if the Celtics ever find themselves down by 15, there's not as much of a panic, because you're oh, they can easily find themselves back in this game just by getting 5 stops in a row and going on a little bit of a run themselves. And I don't know how much of that is just the focus, the lack of defense, but I think this is if we're just trying to chart the changes of what's occurred over this last week. They're desperately trying to find a backup center who works for them.
You've buried the lead, Packard. I'm amazed it took you 8 minutes to get to this, because that's the lead story this week.
Framing it in a way that is as neutral and as objective as possible here. But at the start of the week, when playing the Cavaliers, there was a backup center who played a lot of minutes. And at the end of the week, that same backup center was nowhere to be found in the rotation. And something occurred over the course of the week, I would say many minutes of bad basketball, that led this aforementioned backup center to be benched in Washington, and a new backup center play a lot of minutes against the Wolves. I've been trying to be diplomatic here. Nimi has gotten benched for Xavier Tillman, folks, if you hadn't figured out what's going on here. And it's frankly because Nimi was bad against the Cavaliers and targeted anytime he was on the court, and then was basically maybe almost single-handedly tanked the Wizards game. I think there's many points in which the difference in the score, if you just had to look at the Luke Cornett plus minus and the Nimi plus minus, and it directly added up to the score differential. And so how much of you think of that? I'm not going to say the Celtics struggle, but last year they were blowing teams out by 20 to 30 very consistently. And that's because they just had Kristaps Porzingis. They had Al Horford coming in off the bench. They didn't have this consistent lacking at the center position, because it feels like a lot of what the Celtics do, especially on the offensive end, is going 5 out, is being able to stretch the floor and not having it really hurt them at all. But now it feels like any moment Al Horford's not playing center, it's a bit of a struggle for the Celtics. And that's me criticizing both Nimi and Xavier Tillman, because I just don't think either of them are like great options at this point.
Yeah, it's Tillman's offense has been brutal all year, and you bury him on the bench, but then you forget it's like the warts of his offense, they look better now because you forget, because he's still like, he's a smart player defensively and he's versatile. And it took a couple weeks for that to remind us, and for that to remind the coaching staff on this, and i.e. with Nimi's just straight out struggles on that. I mean, he was bad in Cleveland. He was bad in Washington. He was bad, honestly, the week before that in a lot of those games. And
someone said that. Someone
was on this. Someone was on the case.
Brave enough to point that out.
Sniff this out because this is the perfect example of like a young player inconsistency of like, why was he available last year? Yeah, because he and even last season, he put together like a fun stretch in like November and December. But then the longer it went, it was like, okay, this is, we can do better than this. And Kornet and Tillman are flawed players to the degree, but they also are steadier players, and you know what you're getting from them more, certainly on the defensive end. And with the rest of the Celtics offense not playing to the level they are defensively last year, those warts obviously became more glaring now. And now it's going to be interesting going. I mean, Porzingis is going to be back in a couple weeks anyway, so this probably is not a long-term issue at this point. But I don't know, Packard, you can, I admire how much you're not like strutting right now, because you're on this.
I was on the Still Poddable chat, and folks, if you want to be part of the Still Poddable community and be part of the chat on Patreon, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. I was, because the Wizards game, it was like so clear. It was like immediately the Nimi minutes they were down, and then Kornet came in and they built back up, and just the plus minus argument was building. And Nimi had some really bad moments in that game. And I was on the Still Poddable chat taking my victory lap as a Queta hater, and then people were getting legitimately upset with me in chat. And so I didn't want to flex too hard on my correct take that he is not shouldn't be the 6th man of the year, as some legends might have said on this very program. But yeah, it's just, you know what? I showed up to Washington. I was accountable for my takes. Nimi walked right past me. He doesn't know who I am, but I was there in case he wanted to Joel Embiid shove me for the things I put out there. But yeah, I think it's just he's the dynamic, like flashy player, but he's just not consistent.
He's a wild card.
He's a wild card. He can do blocks. He can certainly catch a lob dunk where Tillman cannot. I thought Tillman had some okay plays today. Like, I think he had a nice pass underneath to Derek White, who ended up getting fouled after he like pump faked in the corner and drove. Like, I think Tillman is just more of a solid basketball player, but neither of those guys you want hanging out in the corner. Like, I don't like it anytime Tillman catches the ball in the corner. I don't want Nimi anywhere near the corner. And it's just, that's not what the Celtics offense is necessarily when it's at its best. And you mentioned Kristaps a little bit. When do we expect to see him? Because all the clips of Kristaps, and he's like practicing with the main Celtics. It seems like things are going pretty well, but it also seems like the Celtics have only lost 2 games, and so there's no real rush to have him back. He needs, like, why not make sure he's 1,000% healthy? But it does seem like he's going to be back sooner rather than later, because he's far ahead of whatever random schedule I put on him, because I didn't think we were going to see him until 2025. Right.
I think that like December was the initial target date, and even then, I think Shams had a report even a month ago saying like, it might be closer to November. At this point, I'd be surprised if we see him this upcoming week. But after that, all bets are off, I think, at this point, because if that was a real scrimmage he took part in, and against Tillman back on last Monday. And the reports out of that was that he looked, solid at that point. And so whenever he's ready, maybe take 2 extra weeks just to be sure, given his history, and ramping him up. And the fact, like I say, as you said, Packard, you just don't need him at this point. But it is a nice little, like, the team knows he's like kind of ready and waiting there. And some of these issues that have popped up defensively and rotation wise, and who's the right matchup against certain teams, and just living with flawed players in the center position, that kind of goes away, or certainly goes away to a point where when they're not playing back-to-backs, where you can just say, okay, whoever's it going this night, whether it's Cornet, Queta, Tillman, like, or who has it going in that stretch of games, Joe can ride the high end with that rather than just turning away from guys because they just don't have it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see like what the rotation looks like when Cornet comes back. If any of those centers get any time, or is it just like the spot 6 minutes here and see if you have it. I feel like if Luke Cornet had the bad hamstring right now, like he would probably be. He feels like the most consistent performer, but then again, he was out today with like a sore hamstring, and so he's not as like.
I wonder if they're just stressing that because they know they want Al's gonna have Monday off, so I was just like, oh, we're gonna give you tonight off because we're gonna need you to play 25 minutes. We'll see, but he has been dealing with that though last week, so it might be more than that. We're gonna find, the injury report will come out sometime Monday. But that will be his injury situation. Cornet he's been pretty durable throughout his career, but when this stuff comes up, they have to be careful of him because if not, then the alternatives are, as you said, Packard, just not like Tillman and Nimi. Those are two guys that you don't really want to be playing regular minutes at this point.
Yeah, if you're a wise person with your money and knew Al Horford wasn't going to play in a back-to-back against the Clippers, maybe you'd use that knowledge on a little app I like to call Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. And so you can run your game all season long. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. So I'm taking a less on whatever Nimi's line is. I'm taking a more on whatever Luke Cornet's line is against the Clippers. And I'm taking a more on Peyton Pritchard all season long. And that's a surefire way to probably make some money on Prize Picks. You sign up today and you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50. You just have to play $5. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Shout out to LeBron James. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts a selected player projection up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. Prize Picks, could be good for Jason Tatum overs or mores. Could be good for Jason Tatum mores. And so if you want to go to Prize Picks today, go to download the app, use promo code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first game or you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app, use promo code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Now I'm not a big NBA Cup guy. And I know B-Rob's not the biggest NBA Cup guy, but Sean is the biggest NBA Cup guy that I know. And he put together the Outline for Day show. 2 of these games were NBA Cup games. They played that Wizards game on a very pink cherry blossom court. My friends who came to the game were also very confused about the NBA Cup. They had no idea what was going on there. But the Celtics, with a little help from the Bulls, are now in actually prime position to win their group in the NBA Cup. If they beat who they have? They have to beat the Bulls.
Yeah.
Sean, you're the NBA Cup guy. Explain it to us.
I love that I'm the NBA Cup guy because I can't stand the NBA Cup, but that does make sense for me being the biggest NBA Cup guy,
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, the Celtics, luckily, like the point differential, all that stuff is actually like off the table for them right now. Really, all that they need to do is they need to beat the Bulls.
Then why were the
Cavs
Wizards fouling down by 15 with 3 seconds to play on Friday night?
Drew Holiday was confused by that. Drew Holiday was very confused by that after a game, being like, "Yeah, I don't know what the."
Well, the Celtics are without fault too. They took a timeout up by 12 with 10 seconds to play. I think just to juice the stats a little bit.
Yeah,
Well,
which they
like-
should have, but the Wizards were out of it at that point.
Yeah,
They needed differential.
yeah, but they
They were-
don't because of the head-to-head matchups is the thing. Because they beat the Cavs,
it's about a
and
culture
the
shift.
Hawks beat the Celtics. So like, we need the Cavs to beat the Hawks. So because right now, actually, the Celtics have. I'm pretty sure when I last checked, the Celtics have a better point differential than the Hawks anyway. So all they just need to beat the Bulls. They need the Cavs to beat the Hawks, and then the Celtics will be in first place in the group. I also think that like Cavs to beat the Hawks is a pretty good bet for the Celtics to
Yes.
make. So yeah, there's a decent chance, despite us after the first NBA Cup game, Packard and I on the post game were like, great, NBA Cup's over, we don't have to worry about it anymore. It sounds like they might actually have a good chance of moving on in this thing.
It feels like the Celtics want to do that after how they showed up against the Wizards on NBA Cup night. Like they won the NBA championship last year. I don't know if they're really necessarily interested in the Emirates NBA Cup. B-Rob, how much NBA Cup is pumping through your veins right now?
I'm starting to feel a little bit of a pulse. I don't know. It's there because I mean, again, we talked to Drew Holiday after Friday's game, and he's like, "Yeah, we thought we were going to Vegas last year. Like we were excited to go." Again, I don't, from a strategic standpoint, don't think going to Vegas is a great long-term play for the team. With that said,
Luke Cornett needs to pay his mortgage.
Luke Cornett needs to pay it off. Maybe he's gonna put that money in the market and then do a bridge loan. We'll see, but it is there now. Like I said, this is kind of falling into their lap, the perfect scenario as Sean laid out there. And I don't know, they won the title now, so it's like if this kind of invigorates them, then who are we to say, don't do it, because now they get potentially what the semifinals and the finals is spread out over like 5 days now, so they could really, like, how many golf games is just Jason Tatum going to get in Vegas in the middle of December? Like, this is the carrot is very much there for them now if they get some help from the Cavs here. So yes, I'm back on board. We'll see what happens.
If they manage to win the cup and win the title in the same year, then the cup becomes huge. Then it becomes like, this is how we did the repeat. We were so dominant in year 2 that it's very cool in soccer when you win the cup, the league, and Europe, and you can, like, Man City won a treble. I don't know what you can't just call it a double. The deuce.
People win a double.
Yeah, but what's a cool term for it?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the deuce is good.
I'm saying, yeah, you're allowed to win 2 things. I'm not saying that's not allowed. I'm saying we need a cool name for it. And so if they manage to pull off the cup, if they go championship, cup, championship, that's a three-peat in my book. Like, I'm willing to.
Should they put on the banner? They put, like, maybe in the corner of the banner. They just as a little, and we also won the NBA Cup.
Just like a patch.
Just a little
like an
patch.
iron
Not even
on
that.
patch.
Maybe just a nick.
Banner 18.5. It only becomes, like, I don't care about the NBA Cup unless they win the championship after the NBA Cup, if that makes any sense. Like, and so I'll root for it, but it's not going to pay off until possibly in June, is like the way I'll get that excited about a cup, because it's just that much way of saying we were so much better than the rest of the league that we won your silly made-up tournament and we won the NBA championship. And it's just like a way to stunt on these hoes, hypothetically.
Will you guys blame the NBA Cup, though, if they win it and then they lose the championship? Is the NBA Cup's fault?
In a heartbeat.
Like, maybe I guess, like, if something bad happens during, like, the championship game, but, like, the rest of it's just, like, regular season games, and I feel like the Cavs,
but they have to play one extra game if they make
the
it.
extra
Well, that's what I'm
game.
saying. Like, the one extra game, I'm like, maybe, especially if, like, someone gets hurt, like, that day or after.
Well,
on, like,
if someone
NBA
gets hurt
Cup,
any point afterwards, it's like you don't know what the strain was having that one extra game.
yeah, we'll be looking back at highlights from that game, being like, it's probably this moment when he stepped weird. But I honestly think that, like, I think that the Cavs are a bigger push for the Celtics to, like, care about winning these games than the NBA Cup itself is, because, like, the Cavs have just been really good and you want that number 1 spot, and it's nice that, like, these silly games on the stupid courts also count towards that.
Yeah, and the Cavs have just like that's why the Celtics are going to be in the cup, because there's no way they're going to lose to the Atlanta Hawks. They just keep winning. And it's wild. B-Rob, you mentioned earlier, but the Celtics are already 2.5 games back of the Cavs. They do have a 3.5 game lead on the third place Orlando Magic. So it does seem like there's these two tiers here, but home court advantage, I feel like is important in the playoffs, and they certainly have all the motivation they need. I still feel like they're going to rest guys when they can get a chance to rest, especially the Drew Holidays of the world and the Al Horfords, but the Cavs just keep on winning, and the Cavs were like, it was a very fun. They had 2 very fun games this week. I think the Cavs is just like a fun game of like Eastern Conference contender that is pushing them to kind of win these games. With that being said, were they really pushed that hard or motivated? And I know what we said, we wouldn't talk about the Wizards game on Friday night, but they came out with no effort at all on the defensive end or on the offensive end or on the court at all. And so how motivated were they really? Maybe they were a little jazzed up. Maybe they were drinking too much of the Derek White beer after the White House, doing some celebrating in D.C. B-Rob, you were at the White House, and I know the Still Poddable subscribers heard you and Jay talk about it a little bit, but I haven't heard the full story. You know, it's not every day you get to go to our nation's capital. How was the time, seeing the Celtics hang out with Sleepy Joe at the White House? Sorry to get so political.
I mean, geez. Yeah, it was certainly a time. It was the ceremony was about 8 or 9 minutes.
Ooh.
But it was very well attended. At least I think 500 friends, family, etc. Celtics, anyone who's a cousin of a minority owner. If you named any kind of connection, you were in that.
I heard there was a lot of people in jerseys at the White House, which didn't feel like appropriate. We saw Jay King in a suit and a haircut, and that didn't feel appropriate either. But like a lot of people wearing Celtics jerseys to the White House ceremony, it just didn't feel right for the moment. But apparently anyone and their mother, if they were at all connected to the Celtics, could get to the White House.
I did see that like the Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll was rocking like a Celtics T-shirt with like a jacket over it, and was just like that was her look for the day, and I love that.
That's awesome. Did this like the whole Celtic or Massachusetts like the contingent go down from the Massachusetts state government? It seemed like every Celtics reporter who's ever covered the team was also there. Yes,
it was very well attended by Celtics media, and yeah, I imagine this is because again, as we mentioned, Celtics probably not going back there in the next 4 years. Would be my guess, or / any NBA team, for that matter.
Why? What happened?
I listen. Getting fights there is gonna get tougher. Yeah. So that I think that standpoint, and it was funny to hear the players afterwards kind of like downplay it.
Jaylen Brown said he'd rather go to Waffle House.
Yeah, exactly. But then posting 1,000 pictures on their social media, like, no, it's a cool experience for everyone involved. And yeah, I don't know, what did you guys, I was worried about Biden a little bit when it sounded like you said Baltimore at the beginning of instead of Boston.
I thought he said the Bulls won the championship. He said something weird. He
had a false start to start, but then he kind of recovered. And it was like, it was an upbeat, he made some jokes, said upbeat stuff. So that was entertaining from that standpoint, but yeah, just a fun day. Good that I think they had it outside given the amount of people were there. And yeah, nice to step foot in the White House and see Jay King in a suit. That was just, you don't get an opportunity to do that often.
Yeah, and you got some picture behind the press secretary's little podium.
The only other place we could go on the campus is pretty much that. That was the press room, which is absolutely tiny, given there's like a bazillion media there. You're like, what is this smaller than a Celtics presser room? So I don't know how that works for them. That must be a tough squeeze in there on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, anywhere else, we were kindly escorted off pretty quickly there. So we'll have to wait to go back for a tour.
Please leave. If you want to go back, or do you want to go to maybe a different event, maybe a live event that you have better access to, might I suggest the GameTime app? I went to my first game of the season in Washington. It really made me miss watching live basketball until the basketball actually started. But I'm sure that won't happen to you. I'm sure it'll be a lot more fun to go to a live basketball event near you. I'm currently living in Philadelphia. maybe Wednesday night I'll go see the Sixers take on the Rockets, who are a very fun team. And if I did, I'd go to the GameTime app. GameTime is the best place to get tickets to any live event near you. It curates the events you want to see. It's sports, it's concerts, it's comedy, theater, and more. They have all-in pricing, and it shows the entire total up front with no surprise fees at checkouts. You get views of what seat you are trying to buy, and they have the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the GameTime app today, create an account, and use promo code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account today and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. Now, Sean, I gotta take a comeuppance with you. I'm gonna ombudsman the ombudsman here.
Wow.
On the outline, you put in a check-in on Baylor Shireman in the G League.
I did. Listen, there weren't that many games this week.
Tell us what's going on in Maine with Baylor Shireman. He learned how to make a shot. He apparently can do that in the G League, but not the NBA.
He can, maybe he needed to warm up. Maybe he needed some time up there. But yeah, Baylor Shireman, he's shooting 41% from 3 right now. He's got 4 makes a game. He's played 6 games, but like he's looking pretty solid. He's got like 8 rebounds a game. Like, yeah, just good to see like development from Baylor Shireman. And I don't know, maybe he and Jordan Walsh like switch spots, and Baylor comes out and he's the 100th man on the roster who plays 3 minutes instead of Jordan Walsh.
I do like the fact that they're bringing him off the bench in Maine.
They are? That's so mean.
Yeah.
He's an NBA player.
Right? They're like, you know what, Baylor? We're pretty stacked here, and you're never going to be starting for us in the.
Oh, that is actually a skill. Like, you got to learn how to like.
Yeah, no, it is like I get it. I think it actually makes sense for me. Like, yeah, you know what? This is what if you're ever playing for us in the next year or two, you're 100% gonna be coming off the bench with the Celtics. So guess what? This is what you're doing. And like Sean said, he's like finding some sort of rhythm, which is big for him, because after summer and preseason, there was really no semblance of any kind of rhythm, at least offensively. So if he's building back up some confidence, that's a pretty important deal not for now, but certainly for the long term.
He's also playing pretty decent minutes. I just have like his stats in front of me. I think I have watched one game. There was a game where JD Davison absolutely went off in that game, so no one paid attention to Baylor Shireman in that one. But he's playing 32 minutes a game, and yeah, he's averaging 21 points a game. Like, pretty solid production from him up in Maine. So, cheers to Baylor Shireman.
6th man of the year in the G League. Look out!
Oh wow. Do they have that? I really hope they don't have that.
they got it.
Highlighting the wrong thing. I'll ask my Nick Friedman. He's now the assistant coach. Of the
did you catch up with Nick at the what's the latest?
No, because he was playing the Maine Celtics.
That's right.
They were in Maine. They split.
They were. Oh, I was gonna say, how did you not go to that game?
No, I wish I could have seen some go-go. I was asking around at the Wizards facility. I was like talking to the media team. I was like, you really need to highlight assistant coach Nick Friedman. He's got a lot of personality for Wizards. I think him and G Wiz, the mascot, could do wonders together. I will say Wizards had some decent in-game presentation. G Wiz went crazy. They had a competition. They had frisbee golf. They had musical chairs. They had a lot of stuff going on. And so if you're not going to have a good team, might as well do good on the entertainment. So good for the Wizards, I guess. It's
a sad state of affairs.
It's a sad state of affairs. All right, let's get to the segments of the show with Moment of the Week. Now, I feel like this one's pretty easy, and normally I'll democratize this process. And unless I hear any objections, I might just go full dictatorship. But I was watching today's game on a train back from DC back up to Philly. And when Jaylen Brown hit that 5th 3 over Rudy Gobert, the fifth three, the only points for the Celtics, I audibly guffawed. I laughed, I chuckled, and I looked around and I looked at the other people where I was like, are you seeing this shit? They weren't because I was watching on my phone. But that's the moment of the week for the Celtics. Like, that was just absolutely ridiculous. 5 threes in 5 minutes to start the game, and then just to not. I guess he made some other threes, that big one down the stretch, but I can't think of another singular moment in this week in Celtics that's going to beat that.
Certainly not in the court. And the fact that Jaylen going into that game was shooting 28% from 3 on the year, it's like he needed one of those. Like, that was a pretty big confidence boost for him, I think, and that was playoff levels of pandemonium once he hit that 5th three at the Garden today, because they said that just for him to do that in that short stretch was wild, especially against a legit team in Minnesota.
What do you think about? I think he was asked about this after the game. He has been like first quarter Jaylen has been a thing for the Celtics for a while now, but the rotation has seemed that it's now Tatum gets the entire first quarter and Jaylen comes out. I think he was asked about that changing role after the game. He seemed to be fine with it, but I don't know if that's the actual case, because it does seem like that has been a consistent thing of him coming out and playing a lot of minutes in the first quarter, but that has not been the case this year.
Yeah, it's something that's probably honestly been the most jarring shift of the year in Joe Mazzulla's rotation. And you wonder what led to it. Is it just like more want to experiment with different stuff? Did Jason Tatum say, hey, man, like, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to get into a rhythm more to start these games. And Joe's, I think, does what Tatum wants him to do a lot. So he's like, yeah, let's try that. I don't know what exactly it is. What it is? It's like Jaylen, that's throughout his career, has done the vast majority of his damage, I feel like, in first quarters. And so whether it's clearly working either way at this point, so there's no imperative shift, but I think it was, good that Joe, on a day like this, decided, hey, let's go back. Whoever's got it going, that's who we're going to go for this first quarter, because it clearly worked.
And we feel like I've seen a lot of first quarter Jason this year, where he's had some huge quarters, scored over 15 points multiple times. And maybe it's just the benefit of, getting all of 12 minutes to go off. But it was certainly a fun moment there in the Garden. But then it's just like immediately it was erased. Like, you go up by like 15-4 or whatever, 15-6. And then it's like, oh, like, we're down. It's just kind of, that's how things work in the modern NBA.
Yeah, I think no one else hit a shot on the team until like there was 2 minutes left in the first quarter. That that was absolutely wild, but it's made for a fun start to the game. We'll crack up on a Sunday afternoon.
Any other honorable mentions for, I guess, moment of the week? Anything that deserves credit?
J. King wearing a suit.
The White House. Oh, what'd you say?
J. King wearing a suit.
Yeah, I was going to say the White House visit generally, but that is the highlight of the White House visit is Jay King in the suit. When I put that episode on to watch it earlier, I was like, am I seeing things? Is this Jay King in this suit on the podcast?
I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because it made me laugh so much. Jay King needed to get a jacket because the event was so well attended that they pushed an indoor event to the outdoor event, right? And he needed a formal jacket. And so who does he call to go and buy that jacket with him but one Tim Bontemps? And so I just want the listening folks out there to imagine Tim Bontemps and Jay King in some sort of department store in D.C. buying a jacket for Jay King, and what just has to be a comedy of errors for everyone involved. I'm sorry, Jay, if I'm not allowed to tell this story, but you bought a jacket with Tim Bontemps, and it seems like that'd be a hilarious situation to be a fly on the wall.
I'll say it looked good. Like, they picked well.
Bontemps picked well.
Bontemps knows, like, if I need to go shopping again, that's the guy. It's the guy to go to.
Kid, this got to look good on you.
Apparently got to negotiate a good deal too. Found a good bargain on short notice. So it was a big win all around heading to the White House. But yeah, that's pretty. The White House versus Jaylen Brown threes. It's tough. It's a tough matchup right there. But we'll give a slight nod to Jaylen.
I think he deserves it. All right. Next segment is shit Joe Mazzulla says. Now, he had a couple good quotes this week, but definitely the best one was, and again, we're going back to this Wizards game. Everything comes back to this He was asked about the White House visit, and he was because Joe Biden mentioned their points per possession, and he said we're pretty good on defense too, which is just classic Mazzulla, just not at all, can't be happy for a moment. But then he got a technical foul in the game and said it changed the energy. He said it thought it kind of changed it, what the environment needed at the time. You have to make those calls from time to time. I thought the team was playing pretty good. It wasn't like I needed to do that, but I felt like it was a way to manipulate the environment. And I just like the way he thinks about things. I like the way the man's brains work. Have you ever seen a coach actively manipulate the environment like that, B-Rob? Or at least admit to it or put it in those terms?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have, but certainly not putting it in those terms.
But they don't say they're manipulating the environment. Right. Yeah.
But over the years, whether it's NBA coaches, MLB managers, I can't imagine the amount of times guys have gone up to refs or umpires are like tee me up or throw me out of this game right now. Like, this is a job here. But Joe did. I'll give Joe credit. Like, Joe does not get technicals, so he does pick his spots quite well with this. Like, and he does tend to flip out when he does get them, but he
has to be held back. He has to be held back by. Yeah. But you think that's all performative, or do you think he's like? Because it sounds like it's very much like I need to get a tech right now, and some coaches might be say like tee me up, but no, Joe's just going to be like, I'm going to go crazy, and I make my head assistant coaches hold me back until they give me a tech.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like, is Joe the greatest actor alive? Because like Joe looks like he was gonna murder a person on that court. So the fact that he afterwards was like, "Oh no, I just really needed to energize the squad a little bit here." I was like, "What?"
It's like he gave himself freedom. Is like he wants to do that at all times, but now he's like, it's appropriate now for you to get a tech. So let your full emotions actually be able to take over. I don't think any of it's acting. I think it's all genuine. He's such a mental alpha that he's just like, all right, the normal controls you have on Joe Mazzulla, take them off for this 1 30-second period, and then you can lock back in. And so that's manipulating the environment. I think that's great. Another great Joe Mazzulla moment from this week before the Cavs game, they said they asked him why the NBA Cup was so important, and he just said, "Who said that?" No.
That was it for. Yeah, I believe it was Chris Casper for the Globe asked that, and they immediately like, well, like like you don't think it matters, and then he went into a long answer explaining his favorite ins and outs of it. But he's letting himself. I think he's just like the king of, bullshitting, I guess. And now he's letting that come out more and more, whether he's manipulating the environment or going back and forth with reporters loosely. So it's we're getting a nice taste of Joe in these pressers.
Absolutely. I think he's just and I experienced my first pregame presser of the year. I think it lasted all of 30 seconds. Short, to the point. No one wanted to ask questions. Palpable fear in all of the Celtics media for not wanting to piss off Joe Mazzulla. I missed it. I didn't realize how much I missed that the weird, awkward. It's not awkward, but just like the pregame press conference is just a very weird thing that we just kind of do by routine at this point. And the coach never wants to do it because he has a game he wants to focus on, and there's never like a lot of information gleaned in those sessions. But it is just like part of the fun routine of covering an NBA game. And I was like, man, I missed this. I've been doing it so long, but this was my first time seeing it this year.
There can be other coaches, Packard. Just not
with Joe
Mazzulla as a businessman.
Not with Brad Stevens. It was COVID when Ime was there, so I didn't have a lot of the situations. Yeah. But in all my time covering the league, you get a Doc Rivers in there, and he'll talk your head. Like Pop will go on for ages. You get a fun visiting coach, and it's a good opportunity for a pregame press conference. But not Joe. He's a steely-eyed.
All business.
He's
business.
Locked in.
It's worked.
While we're on the topic of things I missed, we had it was my first game this year, but we had a solid session at the media dining before the Wizards game of just guys in the media naming dudes. What was it? The 2012 Philadelphia 76ers, where we went through the whole roster. And, it's like I didn't realize how much I missed naming dudes with a group of dudes, but It really took me back. That's community right there, folks. I missed out on one, NBA media dining, and two, naming dudes. And so
It might have to be a regular. We might have to turn that into a regular segment for us,
the thing is, Jay King is so good at naming dudes.
right?
Encyclopedic knowledge. Yeah, I think he let it off with a solid Lavoy Allen reference, or maybe that was you, B-Rob.
No, that was him. That was definitely Jay. That was a great pull. And yeah, then we went down the roster that lost to the Celtics in 7 games there. But yeah, that's we're gonna have to turn that again. Yeah, beating Jay, and that will be.
Oh wow, that's a great thing. A
Ooh.
competition. We'll pick an
Competition.
NBA
Let's
team in
go.
a year,
Yep.
and we'll name dudes and see who can win. Jay versus.
Who's the last person to go? We'll go around.
All right,
me or you or
on
Sean
your
can take
to-do
them on.
list, Sean, is for a naming dudes with Jay King.
Great.
Final segment of the day. This is the Still Poddable Still. And this one, we didn't get to cover it in the post-game Poddable post-game against the Cavs, but this came afterwards. It's just this image of Derek White furiously looking at Jason Tatum laughing his ass off. When I tweeted this out, and I'm not going to do the thing where I share my own tweet, mostly because I forgot to do that. But it does look like Derek White just sat on a whoopee cushion that Jason Tatum placed on his seat. But and for the I hope I'm describing it well enough. But if you for the people who are listening to the podcast, if you want to take a look, you can go to our Blue Sky at stillpoddable.bsky.social. That just comes off the tongue. That's a good way to your social network. But yes, all of us are on Blue Sky, and we'll be posting some clips there. But this is just, it has to be the Still Poddable Still of the week. They're just like having so much fun. B-Rob, are you still against the joint press conference between the Jason Tatum and Derek White?
Yes.
Like,
I like that. They had a funny moment there too, but generally overall, not a good press conference. And honestly, that one had some awkward moments in it. Like those two, I don't know. It's like they need to work on the chemistry.
Well, how else are they going to work on the chemistry if they don't get more reps?
Yeah,
if
that's
your
fair.
way, they couldn't work on the chemistry.
No, that's
You
fair.
think Abbott and Costello just had it all figured out on the first time? No.
But that was
They
a good one.
work on who's on first.
Yeah. So I'll give them that time. We'll give them the rope there. Like they're both. I feel like Derek White is very entertaining. I feel like he's a very funny guy behind the scenes. So maybe he builds up that stage presence more. And but that was a funny moment. That was certainly a memorable moment from that one. So they made the best of that. They just need to hit on that consistency.
That was when I believe it was said Tatum said Al was his favorite
Yes.
teammate, and Derek White was quite upset. Sean, do you have any ombudsman moments for us?
No, I don't.
Because I ombudsman the ombudsman. I really put you.
Yeah,
Already done.
you really flipped it around on me. I also feel like now I need a second person with me for the ombudsman section.
Oh yeah, to practice.
Yeah,
We just kept on adding more and more characters to the show. And we're creating a Still Poddable universe.
Yeah. I think there's one transition I want to show, even though we're not going to do this segment, because I just need B-Rob to see this, and I need the reaction on camera.
I have to have a big.
So
All right, let's let it roll.
Stats from B-Rob.
See, I knew. I said we don't want to say that this week. I wasn't bringing the goods. I didn't have the goods this week.
Oh, the
prepared,
goods were brought
and I know
by
for the
Sean.
reason. So that's exactly because I got nothing to match that kind of an intro. So now the pressure's up for next week.
To be ready.
Now
Play
the
it
pressure's
again.
really on.
Play it again. Stats from B-Rob. It's like a very good that I have no musical talent and I don't have like a vocoder and a synthesizer. If I had a live, you know how some people have like a tube coming out of their mouth and they can do that. Like, if I could do that on the podcast, Jay King would quit. Jay King would. I would be so obnoxious if I had any sort of musical ambition. So it's a good thing for you guys that I don't. It's a good thing that we're still together. then we're going to be coming to you with more podcasts for the rest of the week, because that's what we do. So if you want more Still Poddable, if you want to, maybe the more people who subscribe, we can get me a vocoder and I can start doing entire pods like I was T-Pain. Wow. That would sell. I think we have a $1 million idea here. So if you want to join this Still Poddable community, go to patreon.com/Still Poddable. You should already be following Jay King. You should already be following B-Rob. Follow me or Sean on Twitter, on Blue Sky. But most importantly, you should be following us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Still Poddable today. Subscribe for Monday through Friday Celtics podcasts. It's the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's Internet. And we'll be back with you the rest of the week. Thank you guys for listening.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable. The Boston Celtics Still Poddable.